Hello everybody, this is a follow-up video to my other section on the breakout for Bitcoin 4,200 today, April 1st, 2019. So if you have not watched that video, watch that one first because this is going to be the part 2 follow-through that I'm going to talk about why I think Bitcoin is pumping up and why I think this move is super sustainable. And again, if you have not watched that video, go ahead and click on that one. Alright, so let's get down to the quick and dirty business here. First off, I want to say that this is a monumental price move that we've had. Now again, the reason why I bring this up is because no, it's not the average move that you've been having. There's a lot of factors out there that are happening that many people in the crypto market, in the crypto community, are not aware of. And the reason is because we've been so focused on the tech, we've been so focused on the development of the projects, which is a great thing to do. But there's outside forces right now that are occurring that are moving the price in a direction that does not make any sense. And the reason why I bring this up is because many people are asking me, like, what's going on, Cryptobud? Why is the price moving? Is this it? Is this going to be another pump and dump? Are we going to end up getting back to 4,000, 2,200, 3,200? Is this a fake out by the whales? Anyway, the messages are coming in, and let me just go ahead and address those line by line because I want you to understand exactly the mechanics of this market and why I think that this market is going to be very different in the next couple of months as we begin to grind this area out. All right, so the first thing is the Bitcoin transaction spike that was dated March 29th. This was actually a first piece of evidence that I brought up a couple of weeks ago regarding transactions. At that time, we were talking about this idea that Bitcoin was having this increase in transactions since July of 18. Now, nobody really knew exactly why this was occurring or what exactly was happening to the transactions, but the fact remained is that back in April of 18, we had about, on average, about 200,000 transactions at the peak to a low of about 150. Now we're sitting at close to 400,000 transactions. And this to me indicates that there is something going on in terms of the usability for Bitcoin, specifically on the fact that we're actually had the Lightning Network being implemented, and on top of that, many upgrades to the software protocol. So this to me shows that not only is the use case for Bitcoin been much better than back in 18, but in fact it's actually matured and it's actually a very different type of Bitcoin since 2017. So if you ask me whether Bitcoin's price was warranted in 2017 when it was 20K, I think not. But now I think that it does because of the upgrades it's had. Now, if you look back at the trend since April, it's been on a steady increase. In fact, we had that drop in transactions early in March, and I think that had majority to do with that electricity blackout, where Bitcoin was basically handling these transactions in Venezuela, which we already know has a lot of problems right now with its currencies. And so that spike regained back to an all-time high of about 400,000 transactions. So this shows one piece of the entire picture. Now, it does not indicate that the whole thing is built on transactions or usage, but I would venture to say that there has something to do with the fact that whoever these institutions are or these individuals who are using it are definitely using Bitcoin for its additional purpose and not for speculation. The other thing I also want to mention is that if you take a look at the currencies in the global market, aside from Venezuela, there has been other countries that have basically been devaluing their currencies by continuing to lower those interest rates to zero. And in fact, I would venture to say that this occurs more in the emerging markets, case in point, Turkey, and also some of the more developing countries like the UK. There has been a lot of geopolitical issues happening specifically with currencies and the fact that they're facing these economic problems across the globe. And this to me is the fuel for the next use for Bitcoin, specifically for the hedging against Brexit. And so for those of you who have not been following, it's been a shitstorm overall. Brexit has been plaguing the EU. It has been dominating the headlines across the board. In fact, the pound has been falling at a much faster rate because of the uncertainty with Brexit. So that's two pieces of information that I think is leading up to the rise for Bitcoin's price. Now, the second thing I also want to mention is China has been on a tear lately as far as its exchanges. Now, I did talk about the stock market specifically on the Chinese side. The Chinese government has a really interesting pattern of trying to prop up their own stock markets at the expense of people, and the reason why is because they want to show the community and the world that they are a big player in this. A couple of months ago I was talking a little bit about how they were going to dump a bunch of money in, and currently today, about 2 hours ago, we actually had a continuation of the Asian stock market, specifically jumping over from Monday's monster session. And one of the reasons why was because the equity market in the Asian sides have basically coordinated themselves in such a way to take on the US, specifically in this tariff war. And how they're going to go play about this role is that they're going to basically start to stimulate the economy by pumping up many of these financial assets. And the second thing is the Federal Bank of Australia, specifically their Reserve Bank, has basically left its interest rate at 1.50%, along with many of the other countries. So we're facing a situation where we're going to have a very low growth, high liquidity environment that bodes very well for hedges. Now, in addition to that, if you take a look at the relationship between the Asian countries and Australia, there has been a lot of new developments along with the Euro-Pacific area, specifically these partnerships that Australia has had, and also New Zealand with Chinese. So they're opening up their markets to foreign investments for both the Chinese and the Australians, and this is going to definitely play a large role in the overall pumping, or what you call capital influx, into these little smaller exchanges. So I think Bitcoin is facing a more of a hedge against these geopolitical events that are happening across. Now let's take a look at the last part that I want you to think about here. In terms of the futures, we've been talking a little bit about the US-Chinese tariffs. It's been dominating the news for the last couple of months, specifically about how this is going to resolve itself. And there's been talks already that the US-China talks are becoming to get very constructive, although the Trump administration has been very, very, I would say, careful with how they go about reframing this deal. But the fact remains is that these deals are beginning to get much more closer to some sort of resolution. In fact, I expect something happening within the second quarter of this year where there is some sort of resolution where the tariffs are going to get lifted. And in fact, I think it may actually end up benefiting the Chinese in some way. Now, taking a look at the Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin here, he was actually talking a little bit about specifically the face-to-face meetings they've been having for weeks now. And not only that, but the fact remains is that eventually there is going to be some sort of resolution. And I think because of that, this is something to really consider as far as opening up those global trade routes. And I do think that, something in there that the public may not know yet, but will eventually come out, is that there is going to be a direct access to capital from both China and also the EU and the US. In fact, I think that one of the trade tariffs, and probably one of the talking points, is going to be increasing the investments from foreign companies into the Asian markets. And I think there is something in there that's going to allow crypto to really take advantage of. Now, again, once the details are out, I'll keep you guys updated specifically. Now, another piece of news that's been coming out that I think it's also very constructive has been the regulation space. For the last 2 years, we've been talking about the uncertainty regarding crypto regulation, its actual role in the Asian economy specifically, and it really kind of begs the question is, what is the role of these ICOs, of these new companies coming up in the venture space? And currently, the Cyberspace Administration of China, called the CAC, has announced that the first batch that are becoming to get compliant in the filing include a long list of companies, and these include 3 companies that we are very well aware of, specifically OnChain, which is the company behind Neo and Ontology, and VeChain, etc. If you click on the link here, you can actually see a little bit of some of those specifically. So this actually kind of puts you in a situation where if you're able to pinpoint specifically some of these, you're going to be able to kind of get ahead of this. because I think in the next couple of days and in the next couple of weeks, I would say, is that we're going to see a flood of cheap money coming into the system, and that money is going to spread like wildfire, especially now that the Chinese have access to these foreign markets. And so we're going to see a two-way street, I think, in many cases, of capital coming in to the Chinese market, and also capital leaving Chinese to go into foreign markets as the entire economy becomes a lot more global. Now, taking a look at the last part specifically, is a lot of the news that's been coming out recently, guys, has been focused on the Asian Pacific region, specifically places like Hong Kong, where they basically are utilizing the ATM machines, where lightning payments are beginning to get used quite a bit. And also you're going to see areas from South Korea, which in the past has been very favorable to Bitcoin, where they're beginning to accelerate blockchain development and also industry growth in specifically proposing these specific bills. And so on March 25th, the Democratic Party of Korea has already instituted a regulatory framework that includes the following. Number one, establishing the definition of blockchain tech. Number two, ways to promote blockchain development in industry. Three, the training of blockchain specialists and supporting startups. And number four, creation of designated special zones for blockchain development. This is very common in the Asian areas, where they support special economic zones where people can invest and develop and build these up. And once this happens, you're going to start seeing a lot more money coming in as people begin to start getting a better handle for how this regulation is going to take away. So again, guys, these are just some of the main things I'm looking at as far as the overall macro picture. Now, again, there's a lot of day-to-day noise. There's going to be a lot of FUD coming around, and perhaps maybe some price declines in the next couple of days as the crypto market begins to kind of cool itself a little bit. And so I'm not surprised if we would get another 10% pullback next couple of days after all the hype is gone. But the fact remains that we do have pieces of evidence that indicate that there is a lot of development happening in the crypto space despite the price declines. And this is something that I think needs to be addressed directly, that it's not just in the crypto tech realm, but that there's other forces ahead that are much larger than the crypto market, that are worth trillions of dollars, and that are moving in and out of different countries on a day-to-day basis. So if you keep well versed to those, you connect the dots, in my opinion, I think that would put you in a much better position to do that. And again, make sure that you keep a level head as far as this next rally, because most people get caught with the FOMO, they get caught with the price action without really understanding that. And also I want to let you know that tax season is coming up in another week or so. So if you have not done so, make sure you sign up for taxbit.com. It is one of the best, if not the best, software programs out there to do your taxes. Don't get audited by the IRS. Make sure you file your taxes. You'll earn a 10% discount for that, and it will definitely simplify your life along with your accountant's life. And also, if you're not joined my group, go ahead and join so we can get this community going for our next bull market run. All right, guys, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your evening.